Hello everyone, welcome back to the Eat, Burn, Sleep podcast. Today I have a wonderful guest joining us, the beautiful, inspiring, very knowledgeable Melissa Cohen, who used to be my lecturer when I was studying at the College of Naturopathic Medicine in London. Today we're going to be talking about stress. We're going to share with you some proven protocols to lower stress and increase your well-being. Hi Melissa, how are you?
Oh, I'm good, Yelda. Thank you so much for inviting me on to your podcast and looking forward to our conversation today.
It's an absolute pleasure and honor to have you here. So Melissa is a registered nutritional therapist. She's a functional medicine practitioner. She's an NLP practitioner. And as I mentioned earlier, she's also a nutrition lecturer at CNM. Melissa takes a great interest in stress and in genetics. I was really keen to have somebody talk to us about things we can do on a daily basis to reduce our stress. There is a huge cost to stress. Stress costs the UK economy 28 billion a year. Stress is linked not only to mental health issues but also to physical issues and physiological dysfunctions. Melissa, can you tell us a little bit about how you started taking an interest in this topic?
Absolutely. So before my life as a nutritional therapist, I used to be in the financial markets. So in my 20s, I travelled all over the world. It sounds really glamorous, and it wasn't. I was very privileged to have had that opportunity, but I began to have subtle signs of stress that I didn't listen to. So I started to get headaches. I started to get stomach cramps. In the weekends, being in my mid-20s, I couldn't go out and enjoy myself. I was exhausted and just living for the week, travelling, working, and I knew something wasn't quite right. And then, luckily enough, I had children in my late 20s, and my journey began really looking at my own well-being and my children's well-being. And then a family member got very poorly, and I started to study nutrition. And then I decided, which path do I want to go down? Do I look at conventional medicine? None of the gastroenterologists could help me, so I decided to study it myself. And stress has always been of an interest to me because I see how it affects my family and friends.
I had no idea that we had such similar paths.
Really?
I used to work on the financial markets.
Did you?
And I had children in my late 20s.
Wow.
And I developed autoimmunity, which led me to try and understand better what caused it and led me to look into inflammation. And I have colitis, so I looked into gastrointestinal health. And that's how I ended up at CNM.
Because you don't get the answers, do you? You don't want to be on immunosuppressants. That's not the answer.
Exactly. They didn't work for me anyway.
Did they not?
No. Steroids worked. The first course worked. But after that, I became resistant. I had more of the downside and less of the upside.
Right.
But many people experience that when you take a lot of corticosteroids.
Yeah.
At the beginning, they work amazingly.
You got more energy at the beginning.
Yeah, and as soon as you stop them, you start flaring again.
Yes.
And then I was put on immunosuppressants. They didn't work. And after that, I was put on biological drugs. Humira didn't work either. It took me 8 years to put myself into remission.
Well, it's worth it because your immune system gets totally suppressed and inflammation increases. So it's
Absolutely.
a short-term solution.
Exactly.
Whereas stress still has the inflammatory cascade, but interestingly, it expresses with people very differently, based, I believe, on your genetics and your environment. So for me, it expressed with my gut. I was having a lot of eczema. I was doubling over in pain at my desk when I was working. That impacted my sleep. And then when I started to see it with close friends and family, I realised something wasn't right.
It's so true. The book from Bessel van der Nock, The Body Keeps the Score, is all about this.
It's amazing because if we cut ourselves, we get a plaster, we put some antiseptic cream on. But if we are struggling with stress and the body is telling us, but because we can't see it, and even you can go to the doctors and get tests done and everything will be normal. So there's no point waiting for everything to be out of range. Your body does keep the score, so that's absolutely right. Mm-hmm. And it's listening to your body and then changing lifestyle, nutrition, sleep. Those three aspects I think are crucial.
Melissa, what is the difference on the body between a time of temporary acute stress versus chronic stress? Because today in our society, the way we live our lives, the way we run all the time, the way we love being busy and be on screens all the time, chronic stress is really elevated.
Yeah. I categorize this as 3 levels, just so I can understand it simplistically. The first level, you could miss it. Get a little bit irritable with people, lack of focus, lack of concentration, maybe short-term memory isn't as good as it used to be. You might notice that your appetite either changes, where you're craving the different types of foods, such as sugar or salt, or you have no interest in food. So that's the first sign of stress. And then it gets a bit deeper than that, where you start creating food sensitivities. So foods that you used to be able to eat, all of a sudden you can't eat, which I can explain the mechanisms for that shortly. Eczema starts to appear, sleeping habits change, maybe you're working late and exhausted in the morning, energized at night. So that's the upside down circadian rhythm, where we should be tired at night and refreshed in the morning. So the level 3 is where it's almost a disease state. So that's the inflammation that's hidden, and that could lead to elevated cholesterol, cardiovascular disease, severe migraines, and diabetes. So I do believe that if you manage and notice the subtleties of stress, you can prevent disease, support longevity and vitality going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Because stress induces cortisol, which in turn shuts down the immune system, so anything can happen from there.
Exactly, and the problem is we can't get diagnosed. There's only Cushing's and Addison's for cortisol.
Yeah.
So Cushing's when you have too much cortisol, Addison's not enough. But anywhere in between, it's up to you as an individual, us, to manage ourselves. And unless we're testing circadian rhythm, which you can do, you really have to check in with sleep and appetite and mood and whether you're more happy. Simple things like, am I more happy than sad, generally?
Mm-hmm.
So it's people, I think, get used to being irritable and a bit sad. And it's really important to surround yourself with positive people, what you're passionate about. And if you're not fortunate to work in something that you're passionate about, always put time aside to enjoy your passions and hobbies. I think that's really important.
And the impact of nutrition as well.
Huge.
I see a huge change in my mood.
Right.
If I eat badly.
So what would your main...
So recently I was explaining to my partner, I said to him, listen, I'm like a baby. If I don't have my sleep, if I don't have my food at the right time, if I don't have enough protein and vegetables, I'm the most unpleasant person you can ever meet.
Yeah.
But you give me the right food at the right time and enough sleep, I love everyone.
Yeah.
My mood dramatically changes when I have inflammatory food, and I guess I'm more sensitive than the average because of my disease. But I see people around me who don't realize how much they're really bringing their mood down and increasing their anxiety, really increasing their stress on a daily basis because of lack of attention
to
food.
And food's so addictive.
Yes.
And it doesn't just feed our gut, it feeds our brain. It feeds our microbiome, which communicates with the rest of the body. It feeds our neurotransmitters to help us get happiness and pleasure from life. So food is functional. And I think a lot of people don't really think about what nutrition is giving them. So I think if you know what you're preparing for in the day, you can eat to get you through the day optimally. Because we all want to do the best we can do. We don't just want to get by in the day. And that's why a good set protein is your building blocks. It's our DNA. It's essential to life. So we need enough protein to build all of these enzymes and hormones and neurotransmitters in the body. I think the problem is all the refined and the processed foods that everybody knows they shouldn't eat. So I think that's a given. We all know we shouldn't have donuts and ice cream and cake and smoked or cured meats every now and again. But what's stopping those people from eating those foods, I find fascinating, even though they know they shouldn't. And I think that's where lifestyle medicine and supplementation comes into this, because we are inundated with what to eat, what recipes to make, what exercises to do, but we're still a population that's obese and massively overweight with metabolic diseases such as diabetes that really shouldn't be happening. And I think this all came apparent during COVID, which I don't particularly want to go back to because it was such a dark period, but COVID really made people think, right, I have to be accountable. People that were on immunosuppressants for inflammatory disorders just couldn't go out. They couldn't mix with people. They couldn't be reliant on their medication anymore. It wasn't working for them. So I think most people now are looking at themselves to be accountable for their health. And I think that's really important and really empowering for us all, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember the first time my doctor mentioned immunosuppressants. I looked at him, I said, no way, I can't. This is too dangerous. And he said to me, don't worry, there are no more epidemics. Everyone's vaccinated. But this is
when was
which
this?
year was this? Will was lit. I think it was between Will and JJ. This was probably 2009.
Okay.
At the time where we never thought a
10
pandemic.
years before.
Yes. And my gut said to me, you can't do that. And I was on immunosuppressants. They didn't work. But what made me stop, actually, and I'm not giving anyone medical advice when it comes to medication, I'm just sharing my personal experience. I caught a little cold, couldn't get rid of it for a month. And because I had been on steroids before, my bone density was so low. I kept coughing. I actually broke a rib.
Gosh.
From the coughing, because it kept going on and on and on. And the body is really wired for healing, because due to all my medical history, I have to do a DEXA scan regularly to check my bone density. And my bone density today is higher than the average 45-year-old.
Fantastic.
When it used to be so low, and I broke toes just by banging my foot on a coffee table due to all the medication I was on. That's what I want people to understand. Whether we suffer from stress or we suffer from any physical ailment, the body wants to survive. So if we give it the right support, it comes back.
Yeah. We have our own innate healing. So our immune system, we do need immunity. So our immunity heals it. So we have these various antibodies that go and create these chemical cascades. They create cushioning, and that cushioning creates healing around the injured tissue. But it's very important that eventually reduces. And here's the thing, we need a bit of cortisol in our lives, we need some immunity, we need to be balanced, and cortisol and the immune system have a bidirectional action. So if you're really stressed, your immune system's on fire. There's nothing to tell your immune system to stop firing these chemicals to create more inflammation. That creates more oxidative stress. So that's when inflammation becomes rife, when you're stressed, working in the financial markets, or is in your story, and possibly absolutely exhausted, really flat with cortisol, which is probably one aspect. And that's known as a negative feedback loop, because inflammation just doesn't know when to stop.
Absolutely.
So rather than just say, here's an immunosuppressant, which absolutely short-term is the answer, working on lifestyle and letting your body self-heal and whole food and supplementation, I think is key.
Yes, absolutely. When it comes to protocols for people who suffer from chronic stress, what kind of protocol do you advise your clients to follow when it comes to lifestyle, dietary changes, supplements?
Okay. So clients are all very different. Advising clients when they're dealing with chronic stress, what can they control, first of all? Well, they can control what time they go to bed, and they can control what they eat. So I start with those two factors. And then if, let's say, for example, somebody's not tired in the evening, then we work on some lifestyle medicine. There's quite a few protocols really for that. So breath work is really important to slow the heart rate down. So when you're breathing out slowly and you're breathing out more, so and a short breath in and breathing out 3 times can really slow the heart rate down and get you ready for bed. Also, meditation is really important, but a lot of people get concerned about meditation, that they can't do it and their mind is on overdrive. But there is something called yoga nidra, which is really powerful, and it's nothing to do with yoga. So when I say to my clients yoga nidra, they'll say, I'm so unfit, I'm so not supple, I'm not agile, I can't do yoga. And yoga nidra is a bit misleading because it's nothing really to do with yoga. You just lie there and you hear a very calming meditative voice, which I'm sure is trained in breath work, because you can hear when they're talking, they're slowing their breath down, and you're slowing their breath down, listening to them talking. And it almost is, I feel, when I practice it myself, you're in almost this hypnotic state where your breath is in sync with the person that's talking to you. I fall asleep in the middle. So you're checking in with different parts of the body. I can feel my heart rate slowing. I can feel my breath slowing down. And it's a deep state of relaxation. And that's really important to get you into a deep cycle of sleep. When I think of cycles of sleep, I think of BAD, and I'll tell you why, BAD. So that's beta, alpha, delta brainwaves. So beta is when you're more energized, active, you're relaxing, maybe getting ready for bed. Delta is deep sleep. So the yoga nidra gets you into delta much quicker. And deep restorative sleep takes you through 5 cycles. And that's the rapid eye movement cycle and the non-rapid eye movement cycle, which I find fascinating. And I think it's about 5 cycles that the body takes you through. Now, the non-rapid eye movement cycle is the restorative, where your body's healing itself, possibly cleaning out toxins. There's some research to state that the body does that. And then there's the rapid eye movement, which is dreaming, and that's the creative side. So we can worry and we can procrastinate, but it doesn't give us answers. But if you think about sleep as maybe you'll get some answers when you go to sleep, especially with the rapid eye movement. If you have a little notebook and a pen next to you, if you wake up with an idea, write it down and go back to sleep. So sleep is really powerful, not only to give you inspiration and ideas, but the body can then use its innate system to heal.
Yeah, absolutely. And regulate hormones, regulate blood sugar levels.
Yeah.
And many people don't realize the link between blood sugar dysregulation and cortisol.
No.
So they don't realize that when they have a diet that's high in sugar, not high enough in protein and good fats, and their blood sugar levels are all over the place, going up and down, and they crash in energy, that leads to cortisol dysregulation.
Absolutely, absolutely. So if you're not sleeping well, you're going to crave sugar. It's obvious because you need energy. It might not be white sugar, it might not be chocolate, but it might be carbs. And I know I've been there. And if I don't sleep well, then I'm craving carbs just to get me through the day. And it's almost like a caffeine roller coaster of blood glucose imbalance. Again, you could get your blood glucose checked and be fine, but it's that intricate yo-yo feeling that you have throughout the day. The way you start the day is really important, because if you start the day healthily, eating protein, having a good night's sleep, getting outside into daylight, exercising, if you start the day as you mean to go on, you can be guaranteed a good night's sleep. It's too late to have a chamomile tea or to take some valerian herbs before bed if you've had a day of stress. We can't avoid stress, of course we can't, but it's how we respond to it. And I think it's a journey for everybody to check in with themselves and see how they respond to stress. And we're always learning, and we can't avoid that. So it's better to learn and respond to stress rather than being that tired of up and down and not being in control.
Absolutely. And that first meal makes us either full and stable and in a good mood, or dysregulates our blood sugars, and you have breakfast that's maybe a bit too sweet, and around 11 you crash.
Exactly.
And then you're caught in that low and high energy roller coaster rather than feeling stabilized. But when it comes to vitamin deficiencies, could you cover a little bit which vitamins are essential for the good central nervous system function? It's time for a little break. Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying today's podcast. A reminder to all our listeners to subscribe, rate, and share this podcast with your friends and anyone who might enjoy listening to it. We also have a discount code for all our podcast listeners, which I will be sharing at the end. Keep listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this episode. Could you cover a little bit which vitamins are essential for the good central nervous system function?
Yeah. I think before I go on to that, I just want to explain about the autonomic nervous system.
Of course.
I think it's quite an interesting subject. So the autonomic nervous system is where we do things which is automated. It's automatic. It's what we're born with. And we've got these two directions. Either we are, in simplistic terms, fight or flight. So we're running away or fighting the situation. We're always trying to quench out the fire, and then there's always another fire to quench out. Or there's the, right, I'm going to go for a run, I'm going to meditate, I'm going to do some breathing, I'm going to write things down, I'm going to be curious about how I'm feeling rather than reacting to it. And that's known as the parasympathetic state, or rest and digest is an easy way to look at it. So rest and digest, I'm intelligently responding to stress, or fight and flight, I'm just quenching out fires as I go. And when you're in fight or flight, you are perpetuating thoughts that aren't so positive because you're worried and you're constantly worrying about the next fire that you're going to have to quench. And the reason for that is because the body has fight and flight to keep us safe. You've got to run. The body feels you're in danger. So the brain, which receives all of this stress, doesn't recognise the difference between a real life threat or just being late for work, for example. We have to use our intelligence to state, right, what can I do now about this stress? But for some reason, what's built into us, we keep worrying about the worst scenario because therefore we're in the known, we know what to expect. And that's called fight or flight. And we're never going to get the answers, no matter how negative we think or what the worst scenario is. That leads to that whole cascade of insomnia, and we've all been through that. And sometimes you don't realise you're going through that until you really can't sleep. So that's really important to recognise. Really, if we're in a state of being curious about our stress and learning to adapt and learning to learn, that means the body can store these nutrients, utilise these nutrients and vitamins much more effectively. If you're in fight or flight, the best vitamins in the world aren't going to help you because you're going to be losing those nutrients quicker than you're absorbing them, if that makes sense. So I just wanted to start with that.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I was actually helping somebody with that, and I explained, that person said to me, yeah, but you don't really believe in supplements. I said, I don't believe in supplements when everything is perfect. When you're digesting well, when you're sleeping well, when you're eating highly nutritious food, you should be getting everything and absorbing it. But indeed, when we're really stressed, we go through our magnesium faster, we go through the vitamin B faster, and we get depleted in all these nutrients which are essential for the central nervous system.
Absolutely. So inflammation is, you're going to be depleted in vitamin D because it helps modulate that inflammation. Vitamin D is needed for the immune system. So let's start off with vitamin D. Vitamin D is the basics, I think, for sleep. Why? Because we need vitamin D to create serotonin, which is our happy hormone. Serotonin helps us have regular bowel movements as well. It interacts with our microbiome. Then it signals to the brain that we're happy via the vagus nerve. So vitamin D is essential. So waking up in the morning, getting some daylight, about 20 minutes every single day will help restore vitamin D. And then I would say magnesium. Why? Because vitamin D will just sit there, whereas magnesium takes the vitamin D to the tissues. It helps it activate to do with the receptors. So serotonin breaks down to melatonin, as I'm sure you know. And melatonin is our sleep hormone. That means that we've got a good amount of sunshine, hopefully if the weather's nice. We can even get that little bit of vitamin D in the winter, but in the winter you would probably have to supplement. So vitamin D to create serotonin breaks down to melatonin. So vitamin D, magnesium moves the vitamin D into the tissues in the body. Not many people, because we're talking about stress, not many people realise we have vitamin D receptors in the brain. So they're there for a reason. And if you think vitamin D is needed for serotonin and melatonin, that's really important. Those would be the two basics. Research has stated about you can start off with 100 milligrams of magnesium. If you're very, very stressed, and I would suggest start off slowly with magnesium. The only side effects really are loose stools, loose bowel movements. You can start off with 100 milligrams once a day and slowly increase that to 100 milligrams 3 times a day with a meal, up to 300 milligrams 3 times a day. So titrate that very slowly. Also, to help with stress, B6, vitamin B6 is, if you think of all our neurotransmitters firing in the brain, and some people don't get enough of them, some people get too much of them, and some people don't clear them away too quickly, others clear them away far too quickly. So you can test for everything, but for the sake of not testing, vitamin B6, you could start off with 50 milligrams. B6 helps to support serotonin, which is our happy hormone, and GABA, our relaxing hormone. And we need it for adrenaline as well. So adrenaline is resilience. We need some adrenaline so that we can cope with stress, that we're not going to fall flat. And then if that's not working, 100 milligrams of B6 taken twice a day. So there was research done on 100 milligrams of B6. I'm going to take it right to the top levels now. And 300 milligrams of magnesium 3 times a day over a period of around approximately 4 weeks was shown to reduce cortisol and improve sleep and improve mood. And it showed that magnesium and B6 working together was much more effective. I would say those would be my main go-to. That's vitamin D, magnesium, and B6. There's also folic acid, which has been shown to help support sleep. So there was another research done on a study with about 400 micrograms of folic acid, a tiny amount of B6, 16 milligrams, this is before bed, 1 milligram of melatonin, which is the hormone to help sleep, and I think about 200 milligrams of magnesium. So that worked out as a nice combination to help. It was a very small trial, I think about 60 people, but still it was very effective over 2 weeks. It was shown that people taking that combination got to sleep much quicker. Their quality of sleep was deeper. They didn't wake up in the night, so they woke up refreshed. So it was a real study on well-being and sleep. So I would say those would be my main go-to supplements. Also, if you wake up in the night, which a lot of us do, if you go back to sleep or if you wake up in the night to go to the toilet and then go back to sleep, that's absolutely fine. But if you wake up in the night and you can't go back to sleep, valerian, which are herbs, hops, and passion flower, in a combination has been shown to get you back to sleep pretty much straight away. Now, you can easily make this yourself. You can get some herbs, passion from a herbalist or from a shop, just to get some passion flower herbs and some valerian herbs, or even from a pucker tea bag, mix it together, pour hot water over the 3 herbs, and then cover it, put it on your bedside table, cover it so the aromatic herbs don't escape. And then if you wake up in the night, drink it, drink a few sips and then go back to sleep. So it doesn't even have to be a capsule or a tincture or powder. You can just make that with some herbal teas.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it is wonderful.
That's such a good idea. I never thought of doing that and leaving the cup on my bedside table to sip in the middle of the night.
Covered, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
There are countries like Germany, for example, or Austria, where herbs are used all the time. by everyone, and they steep them for 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 minutes like this. But we don't really have this culture in the UK, and I'm so glad you're mentioning it.
No, we don't. And it's just so powerful. So a lot of people don't like to spend the money on supplements, or they might feel, especially if they've got gut issues, that they're not absorbing it. And then you think what's working and what's not working, because there's so much sensational statements about various supplements. I mean, it's very big in the news, mushrooms, nootropics. So I think to get some herbs, whether it's from a tea bag or whether they're loose, and play around with them, make your own. Chamomile has been shown to really help with sleep. So even adding some chamomile and soaking the chamomile for hours. So if you can imagine after dinner, 8 o'clock at night, 8:30 at night, you wake up in the middle of the night, that's 6 hours of steeping the herbs. So you have quite a potent concoction there to take that can really modulate your nervous system.
Yeah, amazing. Very good idea. So Melissa, a lot of people wonder when to have coffee in the morning, at what time.
Yeah.
And obviously we have cortisol levels rising in the morning, which is our go and get hormone,
Sure.
and we need that.
Yeah.
So when would you recommend to have our first coffee?
I would say if you could wait 90 minutes to 2 hours, that would be the ideal time, because that's when your cortisol decreases. So that means you're in touch with your circadian rhythm, you're on that wave. And if you have the coffee first thing in the morning, you're not utilising your cortisol. So you want to wake up in the morning and be on that wave of cortisol, let that energise you. The only way that's going to energise you, if you go to bed at a certain time, let's say before 11 o'clock, have a good restorative sleep, and then you can start the day with first morning sunshine, walking in nature, going for a run, meditation outside, roll your mat out, do some yoga. And I would say then, if you wake up at 7, then your first coffee should be at 9 o'clock in the morning. If you are somebody that finds that very difficult and you want your morning coffee, as I know sometimes I do, I would say you want to add some adaptogenic mushrooms, such as turkey tail. Turkey tail is great for improving cognition and memory, supporting cortisol levels, and also it reduces the jitters that you might get from caffeine as well. So it's a really lovely adaptogen. It's a nice tip.
Very nice. I do a recipe similar, actually.
Oh,
Not quite similar. This Moroccan spiced coffee that I've created after being inspired on the beach in Morocco. I go to Morocco regularly. I'm half Moroccan. And I always saw these vendors of coffee on the beach, and I never bought it because I didn't find it very appealing. One day I was in Tangier, actually. My children were playing football with children who spoke Arabic, and my children speak French, but they don't speak Arabic. But they were having a great time all
that's
together.
all they need, the ball.
Yes, just with the ball. And the
It's wonderful.
coffee merchant walks by, and I said to him, please, can I try? So I bought a little cup, and I realized that they use all these spices because coffee is quite expensive. Coffee beans are expensive, but spices are cheap, or cheaper in Morocco. And they add cinnamon, they add ginger, they add clove, they add nutmeg. And I realized they are creating a very anti-inflammatory coffee.
Without realising that they were creating that.
Absolutely. And thanks to the cinnamon, there is a blood sugar regulation element which stops people from having the jitters. And that's how I created my Moroccan spiced coffee.
That's wonderful. Do you mix those spices together? So in the morning you can just mix those spices and just take a couple of teaspoons and...
So I have many of my members on the platform or followers who do that.
Yeah.
They do the mix and they just take the
Yes.
spoon. What I tend to do, I take a French press, I put 2 tablespoons of ground coffee, and then I add a teaspoon of cinnamon, a quarter of a teaspoon of ginger, a little bit of nutmeg, a little bit of clove, a little bit of pepper for absorption, and because I like the kick.
Yeah.
I mix it, I let it steep for 5 minutes, and then I
Nice.
drain it and drink it.
Nice. I'm going to try that. I'll try that tomorrow.
It's a nice recipe.
Add it to my turkey tail.
Well-
That sounds delicious.
Well, I'm glad. Yeah, that's a good idea, mixing it with mushrooms as well.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, on that note, I hope this tip is going to inspire you all to slowly change your lifestyle and slowly change your habits. It can feel overwhelming at the beginning, but one habit at a time, and with health education and with the benefits that we get so quickly when we change things, we feel better immediately.
Amazing. And you'll never want to go back to the old habits once you've changed them, because you'll just feel so good.
Absolutely. I agree. And when you fall off the wagon, like I often do, you're reminded why. You tend to stick to better habits.
Sadly, you become more sensitive to bad habits.
You do. Some people ask me this. They say, oh, when I eat healthily, I can't tolerate bad food anymore.
That's exactly it, yeah. It's funny.
And I say to them, exactly like when you stop drinking, you can't drink as much, but it doesn't mean that your body is weaker. It's just that you're less used to a poison, because the body adapts.
Absolutely. And if anything, that would help you. It's your body's way of feeding back that this is too much.
Absolutely.
Goes back to listening to your body, and your body always keeps score, that you were saying at the beginning. And
exactly. Well, thank you to all of you for listening. Make sure to share this episode with anyone who might benefit from it. Melissa, thanks so much for coming today on the Eat, Burn, Sleep podcast.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. Great to be here.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to all of you for listening to this podcast today. I hope you enjoyed it. It's always such a pleasure to talk about health, because it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. Looking after our health is a daily thing, just like brushing our teeth. We've got to focus on it, we've got to do it right so we can live better and happier lives. For those of you who are not members of the platform yet, we have a discount code for all our podcast listeners. You can get 15% off the memberships. Just enter the code podcast15 at checkout. Thank you. And make sure to read all the articles and all the free content we have on eatburnsleep.com to keep you motivated and informed and educated about living an anti-inflammatory lifestyle.